2023 wasn't a good year for the Carolina Panthers, but I'm trying to make 2024 a better one for myself. Get started on your resolutions with Factor so you're ready for the new year. Factor's ready-to-eat meal delivery takes the stress out of meal planning and sets you up for success in the new year. Skip the grocery stores, prep work, and cooking fatigue. Instead, get chef-crafted, dietitian-approved meals delivered right to your door. With over 35 meals to choose from per week, including keto options, calorie smart, vegan plus veggie, and more, plus over 55 weekly add-ons, you'll have a ton of nutritious and flavorful options to kickstart your resolutions. Skip that overpriced takeout trap. Factor is cheaper and way more delicious than takeout. Get chef-crafted, restaurant-quality meals delivered right to your door, and they're ready to heat and eat in just 2 minutes, which means more time for you. Head to factormeals.com/C350 and use the promo code C350 to get 50% off. That's code C350 at factormeals.com/C350 to get 50% off.
Where Carolina Panthers fans have an insatiable thirst for Panthers news and opinions. Only one podcast roars ferociously. It's the C3 Panthers Podcast.
Yo, what's the deal, Panther fans? It's your boy, the Professor, a.k.a. Tony Dunn. It's the C3 Panthers Podcast. It's Thursday night. You think it's Tuesday night because we here. But it's been Christmas and then New Year's. Next year we won't got to worry about that because Christmas and New Year's probably going to be on Wednesday or something or Thursday, so we'll be all right. But we're here on a Thursday night in 2020, celebrating a new year, a new era, and we're chopping up the latest Panthers news and opinions, and it's all about the fan perspective, folks.
You're going to take something you've learned.
Oh, the stupid autoplay. Every time something goes stupid in the beginning of this show, but you know who's not stupid? What's not stupid is my boy Cody Lashney. He's a big Panther fan, and he's here to chop it up with me. How you doing, Cody?
And you know what, Tony Dunn? We're going to be all right, like my man Kendrick Lamar says. And you know what else is new? In this brand new year of 2020, we still have the most lit Panther fandom in the YouTube chat. All the greats are here tonight. Underground West, Tim Tizzy, Richards Outdoor World, Brad Dugan, Alex Stark, Ruben Terry, Tony Dunn. We have so much to talk about, man. And nothing to it but to do it, brother. Let's roll.
CK's in the house. How you doing, Cody?
You know, living the dream, man. New decade, new year.
New house.
New house. It's the year of 2020.
New microphone. Shit. New hat.
Yeah, new setup. Yeah, sure, man. Sure. Got it all. Got it all. But, you know, it's that the year of clarity with 2020. I think that should be the focus of this year moving forward. Just clarity where we want to go with the future. So looking forward to kind of getting the first podcast of the year off the ground and running, bro.
Yeah, man. Go ahead and smash the thumbs up button. Subscribe to the C3 Panthers podcast. There's 30 people watching. I want to see some thumbs up in the air like lighters, like you just don't care. Come on, folks. Tonight's show, Beignets, McCarthyism, and searching for a leader in Carolina. Cody asked me why I said Beignets, and it's because Beignets and Bieniemy remind me of each other. We're talking about tonight the Carolina Panthers coaching search as they unfolded interviews. We have briefly highlighted a little bit of the McCarthy interview last week, dual interviews. We talked a moment about it. We're going to deep dive into that. Also talk about Bieniemy as well as some of the other coaching names that are out there as we continue to try to see and figure out how the Carolina Panthers are going to ultimately right this ship and start a new era, a new decade in the wake of Ron Rivera, who joined the Washington Redskins this week. So there's actually a lot, strangely enough, to talk about, and you know what we'll do. We'll talk and talk and talk until you don't want to listen. So go ahead and subscribe so you can listen later. If you can't listen this evening, call into the show 252-228-5098. We're on iTunes, TuneIn, Stitcher. We're everywhere. Wave your thumbs in the air like you just don't care. Cody, tonight I think we got to just really first, I don't think there's anything more important than talking about our coaching situation, but I do think we probably should talk about actual news rather than speculation to start. Ron Rivera joins the Washington Redskins, keeps the Riverboat Ron moniker, right? I think this is interesting. I like how his daughter and him have worked on their branding since the 2014 season with the Riverboat Ron. They've embraced it, but we know Ron ain't on no riverboat. He ain't gambling, but he may be gambling pretty hard. What is he betting on when it comes to, how about this? If you're in Vegas and you're going to become the coach of the Redskins, you don't bet on black. Oh, that's messed up. That's some racial shit right there. That's, sorry. But that, you bet on red? Ugh.
Well,
not good.
So listen, man. Apparently, Dan Snyder told Ron Rivera that he wants to do what Seattle has done, the Patriots, all these places that are built around a head coach, and the Redskins want to build around Ron Rivera. And hey, listen, good luck to him. I wish the man all the luck in the world, except for when he plays the Panthers and when he's doing football in the NFC. So strangely,
I think it's a good situation for him, Cody, is that the Redskins they've got some good pieces on the defensive front. They're potentially going to be drafting, third or something like that? They're going to get Chase Young.
It is still weird to see Ron Rivera talking about another team that's not the Carolina Panthers and talking about the Washington Redskins. And I mean, listen, I'm happy that we moved on. It's definitely still weird though.
I think my initial thoughts though, Cody, is that it might not be this year, it might be next year, but Washington has potentially the makings of being the 2013 Panthers, a stout ass defense with a front that just beats that ass every week, and an offense that can't score over 21 but wins 12 games. CK, I saw you shaking your head. I mean, there are some defensive parts there. Ron Rivera, they've talked about him bringing in potentially Steve Wilkes into the fold, or that's his intention. And what is the asshole got to go and do and hire Jack Del Rio? I wish we would have had some Jack Del Rio.
I know. I thought the same thing, man.
Well, it is, hindsight's always 20/20. And, as we've all discovered, Ron Rivera.
And Eric Washington is always blind.
Well, well, what I look at is, beyond all that, I think that Ron Rivera, it takes a lot to want to fire somebody, right? It takes a lot for him to fire someone. And last year he only fired people because it was really his job on the line. And so now he's looking at it from a fresh start. He's able to get somebody in there, that has a good track record of running a defense that's able to actually succeed in the NFL. So it's frustrating, but at the same time, it's not unexpected.
For me, I also thought, though, I thought Jack Del Rio, he was going to bring in, I thought he would have been a great fit after, demoting Eric Washington this past year and then Ron taking over. Or when Sean McDermott, actually was interested in when Sean McDermott left. And I secretly believe this was the case when it came to Ron, that he was intimidated about bringing in coaches that would have made good interim coaches. And so, I think that's why he hesitated in bringing in even a Norv Turner to a certain degree. I know he wanted to bring him in. But if you bring in a guy who has had coaching experience and is capable underneath you, it's hard to fire Ron Rivera when Perry Fuel's the coach or Chase Blackburn is the interim or some shit like that. You got Jack Del Rio there who has had I think he's a great coach. His defenses have always played well. He was with the Panthers back in the early 2000s, I want to believe. I think he was under John Fox or something, and then he goes and coaches Jacksonville. They were good, and he was a good coach. He was a decent coach in Jacksonville, and that Oakland team under Jack Del Rio was the best Oakland team we've seen in a while. So yeah. I'm excited about the opportunities for the Redskins right now. and you're bringing in some guys that if Schneider can keep his hands off a little bit and doesn't do what people at least have said and claimed he has done to derail the team, is that the Washington Redskins might be an up-and-comer in the NFC.
I saw someone on Twitter say Ron Rivera is going to try and ruin another great black quarterback. And I thought that was
I think he appreciates it, man. I think Ron Rivera appreciates Cam Newton. I think he's been agitated that he's been hurt.
Yeah.
You know, but I think he understands that he had something special. And just kind of like Greg Olson, this is what I love about Greg Olson, is that he just recognizes there was something special there. And no matter what your predispositions are, whatever it is that was some greatness right there on the field when the magical, kind of like when you're watching those boys flick that ball on the college football team. I look at them, Cody, I was watching that Clemson Ohio State game, and them boys just be flicking the ball like 70 yards, like nothing.
Yeah, man. I mean, that you're looking at two future NFL quarterbacks on both of those football teams, number one pick type material. And, yeah, and by the way, I was a fan of Dwayne Haskins. That was actually the first scouting report I ever wrote for DraftTech.com was on Dwayne. I think he has a ton of potential, and I don't know, man. Let's see what Ron Rivera does with it. But, dude, I'm done talking about Washington. I think that we need to go on and talk about some of these dudes.
One other thing to talk about. Guess who is also potentially being courted to Washington?
Oh, yes. Thank God. Ryan Vermillion. Dude, take him off our hands, man. You and I have been on this for a while. I believe the fact that he is constantly having players undergo surgery far too late. He's been a problem for a long time. He's mismanaged a ton of players. Dude, good riddance. Don't let the door hit you on the ass on the way out.
I think this is a clear indication, though, that Tepper intends to move on from everyone. It is a full-on organizational flip. Flip everything on its head. I think.
Amen. Thank you.
I don't think Vermillion would be interviewing elsewhere if he actually believed that he was safe there in Charlotte. And
he obviously doesn't have a job as of today.
Yeah. I mean, exactly. But I think Tepper, I think he's the type of guy who's going to let these guys know ahead of time. It may not leak to the media yet, but I think he's already made these guys aware that it's likely they're not going to have a job. So they need to start looking and interviewing so that they have some time and they have the ability to have a competitive edge over some of the other people that
much like he did for Ron and Scott and these guys at the back end. I think you're exactly right. Brad Dugan, I saw it somewhere earlier. Brad Dugan said Ron going to sign Colin Jones to a 5-year contract and sign Cap to be their starting running back for the Skins. No. Ron did not. Yes to the Colin Jones. No to the Cameron Artis-Payne. Cameron Artis-Payne is not beloved by Ron Rivera. He never got a hat. Give Cap a cap is always what we said. Give that man a helmet. He didn't ever get it, but he did hang around. I think this is that I truly believe what's going to happen is Ron Rivera is going to go there. They're going to have that crazy-ass defense. They're going to get like 70 sacks. They're going to run the ball like crazy, and he'll probably start Adrian Peterson over Geis.
Yeah. That's perfect. He's a
veteran.
Yeah,
that's what I think.
Missed opportunities.
Oh, and by the way, Ryan Vermillion going to the Skins can't be a tip of the cap to old Trent Williams. You ever been screwed by a medical staff? Well, meet Ryan Vermillion.
Yeah, boy, really, right? Yeah, you're not doing much better.
All right, so let's see what else we got to talk about tonight. We've got before we get into it, don't forget if you're going to go and try to catch a game, the Carolina Hurricanes are playing the number 1 seeded Washington Capitals tomorrow night in Raleigh. You can go to vividseats.com or download the Vivid Seats app. You can sort by seat, by price, and you can get a ticket you want for a price you like. Get the Vivid Seats app, promo code overtime, and you can get up to $100 discount on your first time purchase. All the tickets are 100% buyer guaranteed, but when you go to Vivid Seats that you're going to get a ticket for a price you like, and it's going to be secure. It's going to be easy. It's going to be fast. They always send you notifications for upcoming discounts. Vivid Seats app, be sure to use the promo code overtime. That's right, the promo code overtime. Guys, really the whole point of tonight's show and until otherwise, I think, is going to have to be continued focus on this coaching search. And what we are talking about, and tonight's show, Beignets, McCarthyism, and searching for a leader in Carolina, is that coaching search. And right now we know this is that the Panthers have interviewed Mike McCarthy twice. They have also requested interviews with Josh McDaniels, as well as, I believe, have officially announced that they are going to be interviewing Eric Bieniemy. Guys,
they interviewed him today.
They interviewed him today.
Yeah,
one of two.
They interviewed him today, yeah.
So let's talk about Eric Bieniemy and the hot topic, the hot news, and the guy of the day. Cody, I know this has been a favorite of yours for a while. I mean, I don't know if you like him more than Stefanski. Actually, do you like him more than Stefanski?
So I was telling you this before the show. We're in a kind of a weird scenario where, save for Mike McCarthy, I'm really okay with a lot of the names being connected to the Carolina Panthers right now. I'm on record on this podcast, even at the end of last year, saying I really liked Eric Bieniemy. What he has done with the Kansas City Chiefs has been incredible. Their offense, specifically in 2018, was that was his first season as an offensive coordinator, and they were first in yards per game and points scored in the NFL. Now they also had an incredible quarterback, incredible talent, all up and down the football team. But it shows you that, Eric Bieniemy is a guy that knows how to get the most out of his offense. He's a former running back himself. He was, in fact, drafted by Marty Herney with the Chargers back in 2000. What year was it? Like 1992 or 1993 or something like that?
Tell us about this, CK.
So yeah. I mean, basically, what had happened is, obviously, Twitter is the provider of all knowledge of the known universe, and there was a connection between Bieniemy and Marty Herney, where Marty Herney was in Chicago or at the Chargers in San Diego when they drafted Bieniemy in the second round, if I'm not mistaken. And so that would be an interesting connection there between those two, because there's, Marty Herney gave him his first shot in the NFL and as a player, and Bieniemy's never been a head coach, correct?
No, he's been a offensive coordinator as the highest position.
So there's a connection there, and almost a nice circle that kind of brings it back to where Marty Herney now gives him the opportunity to be the next head coach, his first head coaching position. So first chance in the NFL and first chance in the NFL as a head coach as well.
RT 1981 says, didn't even know Herney was in the NFL in 92, and I agree. I had always heard that Herney was a newspaper guy or a media dude who found his way into the NFL, into personnel.
No, he was an assistant general manager to the Chargers in 1990.
So he must have been even before. That must have even going way back into the 80s, I'm thinking of. Now, this is Marty Herney has hired Ron Rivera, gave Ron Rivera his first chance as a head coach, who also had a San Diego connection. Now we might know a little bit more about why that San Diego connection existed, even though that sounds like it's decades before where Ron Rivera was. But Bieniemy has been an offensive coordinator, I believe, at Colorado or Colorado State. I'm not 100%.
He was in 2010. He returned to Colorado, where he played football, and he was the offensive coordinator under their head coach John Umbry. And he wasn't there very long. I mean, people have known about him for a long time. This is a guy, so he was with the Minnesota Vikings at one point in time. He was the leading rusher in the NFL that year with 1,341 yards.
Wow. So he's a good player, too.
Yeah, a good player. So listen, I mean, now that we're moving into an era where the offense is so centered around Christian McCaffrey, it's really hard to imagine a better coach to get Christian McCaffrey involved in more inventive kinds of ways that even the Panthers haven't been using him, and yet Christian still became a 1,000 player this year. So
and he's coached guys like, I mean, look, is that he has only recently taken over the offense. I think Bieniemy is hired by the Chiefs in 2013, was not promoted till last year to the offensive coordinator, but only 2 years as offensive coordinator for the Chiefs. But guys, that offense has not been lacking in Kansas City. Rookie quarterback, or basically a rookie quarterback last year, and Patrick Mahomes slated Kareem Hunt, Tyreek Hill, Sammy Watkins. Now, here is the one concern I have when it comes to this this resume is, boy, you're talking about having some tools, and you're also not in the toughest division at the time. So the Chiefs have been, picking at, in my opinion, a little bit of low-hanging fruit in that division, as the Chargers have stunk, as the Broncos have struggled to find a quarterback, as the Raiders have stunk. And they've also, I mean, they have had lightning in the bottle, but you're talking about having a lot of parts there and a lot of explosive parts that we wish we would have had at the time. Now, we think we do have some of those. But, guys, as Bieniemy, are there any concerns that he's a product of the situation? Not a product of the situation, but has benefited from a very conducive situation as an offensive coordinator?
You want to go first, okay? I have my thoughts.
You take it, man.
Yeah, so, I mean, I try and judge Eric Bieniemy on what I know he was in control over, and that was the running back position. He was the running back coach for the Kansas City Chiefs. And if you look at Jamal Charles and Kareem Hunt was a 4th-round draft pick and then came in, and he was looking to be the offensive player of the year that year. It's the same draft as Alvin Kamara and Christian McCaffrey. I mean, and you look at what running backs in Kansas City's system have been able to do for such a long time, and his resume kind of speaks for itself. Andy Reid's coaching tree is kind of legendary at this point. A lot of real names have come from that tree, and Andy Reid speaks higher of Eric Bieniemy than he's ever really spoken about any of them. I mean, you're talking about, Reid is a guru of NFL offenses, and he talks about this guy like he's the next version of himself. And Eric is from New Orleans, so imagine how awesome it would be to have a coach from New Orleans to beat the hell out of New Orleans every year.
This is a little crazy when you look at the Andy Reid coaching tree. Of the 10 coaches, 7 have led teams to the playoffs. Matt Nagy, but you also have John Harbaugh from Baltimore is considered under the Andy Reid coaching tree. Doug Peterson, Ron Rivera, and ex-Minnesota Viking Brad Childress, all coaches. Pat Shurmur, Todd Bowles. I'm a Todd Bowles fan. I know you guys think that's crazy, and I'm probably going to get calls about it. But I think he is a good defensive mind right there. As you're talking, and these guys are under, and Andy Reid is under the Mike Holmgren tree. Right? And Mike Holmgren goes back to John Gruden, Steve Mariucci, Andy Reid. So there is, one of the things that's interesting about this, Cody, is that sometimes you look at these coaching trees and you think that they're going to learn so much and be successful, but we've also seen some very good coaches that their assistants have not done a lot. I think of Pete Carroll. I think of Bill Belichick in some ways.
Yeah. And listen, it's kind of a crapshoot. I mean, you're taking a gamble. No one has a crystal ball to look into the future. But one of the things when I, in the draft community, there's this, people tend to make player comparisons. So if we're looking to draft this player, you can reasonably expect that he will look like, example A or whatever. But part of the reason I don't like to do that so much is because I don't ever want to judge another man based off of what another man before him couldn't do. So I don't know. I'm not really looking at what coordinators did or didn't work out. I mean, you have to do your due diligence and think, is this head coach going to be able to utilize the talent that we have on our roster? And in a modern NFL where teams are throwing the ball more, we know that he knows how to do that. And he's a running back coach. And his running backs always produce. So we're never going to have an offense that isn't.
Well, we don't need a running back coach. We got one.
One or the other.
No, I'm just kidding. You're right. Is that putting him with Christian McCaffrey might make something more magical, which is crazy to think of. I was listening to some Eric Bieniemy before the show, just some of the press conferences from last year. And one of the things I really liked about him is he talked more about the defenses for other teams than he talked about his own team. But he also did conclude his discussion of those defenses with like, hey, we have to do what we do well as well. Like not just only think about them, but stick true to who we are. So there was an honesty there, but what I liked about it is he was calling out every single player by name or number. And he apologized when he couldn't remember their names. And we're talking going deep down the line. So you mentioned before the show, Cody, is you think he is a studier of the game. And so he's 50 years old. What I do like about that is that's kind of a sweet spot age, I feel like, is that you still are young enough, but he's been around long enough. I'm warming to the idea of Eric Bieniemy.
I'd be really happy if we landed him. Look back to that 49ers route earlier in the season. I said at the time, people might think I'm crazy now, but on paper, when you look at our roster and their roster, that there wasn't a lot of difference. We had an incredibly talented football team. The difference was Kyle Shanahan knew how to game plan Ron Rivera's defense. And Eric Bieniemy is the type of guy that's going to be able to do that same thing to opposing defenses. He knows what's coming. He wants to give our offense favorable matchups and be able to move the ball, both running and throwing the football, using a lot of new modern concepts. I mean, we honestly haven't even used Christian McCaffrey to his full potential as crazy as
No, we've kind of just used him as a normal player.
100%, and look at what he was able to do just being a normal player. So, I mean, this is the man that I wanted at the end of last year. Yeah, I was high on him. So I'm hoping that it went well today. I would love to have Eric as our new head coach.
You're listening to the C3 Panthers podcast brought to you by CarolinaCatChronicles.com. We want you to be part of the show by calling into the Cat Calls line. The number is 252-228-5098. And Brad Dugan's got something to say in the chat room. And boy, this is some type of news right here. It's like Cody Lashney's friend who was delivering a package to damn Bank of America and they wouldn't let him in, and he worked for Amazon. He's like, "What's up?" or something like that, or he worked for UPS and they was like, "What are those Amazon boxes?" and they like, "You can't see it." And it turns out it was all or nothing. We had that tip. Brad Dugan here with that type of tip right here. He said this: number one recruit for 2021 leaving Oklahoma because he said he would only leave if Lincoln Riley left. Something's up with Lincoln Riley. He says, "Riley to the Cowboys?" ? I want to say Riley to the Panthers? Question mark, Cody?
I've almost even pushed it out of my mind because I didn't.
I'm the same way.
Like, it was something that I mentioned doing a long time ago now. You and I I know you're a fan of him. He has the ECU connections. I don't know. I'm kind of, dude, if I was him, he did everything that he could possibly do with Oklahoma. Like, you're not going to be able to make that team any better than what it is and be able to compete with these SEC powerhouses and Clemson and these other football teams that are just built stronger and tougher. That's not how you win football in the Big 12. So,
well, you might be able to in like 8 years from now after you've established that type of the fact that he's done it with what he has, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And the fact that he's been able to take quarterbacks like Baker Mayfield and Kyler Murray and Jalen Hurts. These guys are not the definition of a traditional quarterback, and yet he turned them all into damn near, save for one, turned them all into Heisman winners. And Jalen
was a Heisman contender though the whole time.
He was a Heisman finalist. He put up great numbers. I would love, the type of concepts that Riley would implement on a football team. I would love to have it. I hope that he has the wherewithal and the mindset to hire a defensive personnel that'll be able to make up that side of the football. Because I don't think that he's particularly great at fielding a competent defense, and you have to be able to coach both of them. So I
think it's a tough criticism. You know what I'm saying? He plays a tough criticism in a short time. But I understand is that you have not seen him coach a defensive team yet.
No, and
I wouldn't even say competent. I would just say is that it's just tough. College football is so wonky. I think it's so different. It's really hard to. And outside the SEC, it's really hard to have a defense that just dominates.
Yeah, it's all about how you recruit, and the rich get richer in college football. If you're one of the premier powers in football, all the best players want to go there. They want to be on television. They want to be a name. They want to be drafted high. So it's a more even playing field when you're the coach for an NFL team. And if you're him, why wouldn't you take an NFL job right now? Everyone's, talking about you to the Cowboys or, even if it was the Panthers, these opportunities don't just come around to be an NFL coach. So I don't know why you wouldn't jump on that right now. You've done incredible things at Oklahoma, but what the SEC does to them every year in the playoff doesn't give me a lot of hope that that's going to change. So I don't know why he wouldn't make the jump now.
Joey asked, go ahead. Okay.
I was going to say, do you think that the promise of the Cowboys offense and, really having all the pieces that they need, a la the offensive line is one of the better ones in the NFL. You have a really young, obviously you're paying your offensive powerhouses this year one way or another. Right. But you have all the pieces that you look for a successful offense. And then you have some actual pieces to build around on the defense. Does that outweigh the fact that you're going to have to answer to Jerry Jones at Dallas? And does that make Dallas less appealing because of that? Or is it really not that big of a deal because you believe that you're going to be the one coach that he doesn't micromanage?
Yeah, listen, me personally, I would not want Jerry Jones breathing down my neck all the time, making every single decision. But listen, you're not going – if you're a team that fired a head coach, more than likely it means that you don't have, a lot of certainty in the program. So we have a brand new owner for the Carolina Panthers and David Tepper. Jimmy Haslam of the Browns has continued to fill the dumpster fire for the better part of 2 decades and the endless carousel of general managers and coaches. And now you have the Cowboys, and who is by far the most flamboyant owner that there is in the NFL. Everything has to be his way or the highway. I don't know. And maybe those are reasons why he doesn't want to come to the NFL. But, I mean, the man is from Texas. Jobs like the Dallas Cowboys don't come around very often. If I'm a betting man, I'm saying that's probably where he's headed.
Where he ends up, yeah.
I have not heard that name connected to us at all.
No, we have. You're right. We haven't heard that. We haven't heard any of that. But we also haven't heard any of his name connected to the NFL at all just yet.
Yeah.
A lot of speculation there.
But media pundits, yeah.
I do want to say that when it comes to Jerry Jones, I would have said that 5 years ago confidently that he would have been a reason I didn't want to be a coach of the Dallas Cowboys. But there's an argument that he is sort of a changed owner. At least his son is taking over more and more when it comes to the draft. And how, I think going back to when they did not draft, what's his name, the quarterback from Johnny Manziel, is that was a moment where at least the son, I think, overrode. I think the fact that he's also, Tim Tizzy said this, is Jason Garrett must have some dirt on the homeboy because he's going to be like a personal assistant to the GM or something. But he doesn't really want to fire Garrett. And maybe that tells us that Jerry Jones is getting old a little bit, and his person, and you're starting to wonder, at least even if you look to Ron Rivera, are they starting to say that some of this is media hype about how the organization is derailed by the owner?
Well, listen, whatever show you watch on ESPN or Fox Sports, they always talk about the Cowboys. Like, even when there's other shit to talk about, they have to talk about the Dallas Cowboys. So it's like, what's insane to me is that, Jerry Jones has known this was coming. He knew that there was going to be a very good chance they're not going to win the division. This is all the news had to talk about for the past, 3 or 4 weeks now, was whether or not Jason Garrett is or isn't going to be fired. And like that, the man still hasn't made a decision yet. Like, I don't know, CK, I know you had a theory that maybe they're just trying to move him around in the organization and kind of move him somewhere else.
Well, how many? They've had multiple meetings with him, right? So
yeah.
They don't have to announce anything. They really don't. His contract's up. He's not the coach right now. The day that the elite
they have no coach right now.
Yeah, they have no coach right now. Now, they've continued to meet with him, which leads me to believe a few things. Number one, either he is going to be the answer for them at least for one more year, or they're trying to keep him within the organization, but maybe try to convince him to take a step away from the head coaching position that he's in now. Why else do you sit there and continue to have meetings with the guy when he's technically not even employed by you anymore? Those are clearly negotiations of some sort. So it's got to be one of the and if you're Jason Garrett, are you going to go be an offensive coordinator at another? Because you're not getting a head coaching job right now. It's just not going to happen. You're not going to leave the Dallas Cowboys with the talent that they had and not be able to succeed.
I don't think you should get an offensive coordinator job given that. Like,
I think he'd still probably have a better shot at an offensive coordinator job than he would a head coaching job, certainly. But
right, that makes sense.
I don't think he'd go as far back as the quarterback's coach. I think that he sticks. I think he's shown that he has the ability to call plays, but when he is in control of an entire team, he's just not been able to put the pieces together. But he has all the pieces that he needs to be able to succeed. So that's why I don't think he'll be able to be a head coach in the NFL.
And in a dumpster fire of the NFC East
of a division,
this year.
Yeah, of a division.
How the hell, if there is a way that you could back into the playoffs, it's this year.
Yeah, and that's he's.
This is why I like Doug Peterson, man. As I don't sleep on the Eagles, I know they don't got the horses to really go.
But he is
deep.
a master motivator.
That dude is legit. He's a legit ass coach. I don't know what it is about him. I know he does shit weird on fourth down. He's like the four down theory type dude. But I believe in Doug Peterson, and I think that if the Eagles were to fire him, which I know they're not now since they won in the last little bit, but there was that radical contingent, I would have been happy to pick him up.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would have been a great hire for us. And a lot of people are kind of saying what you are right now. Don't sleep on Philadelphia. They have a home game. Seattle has to travel to them. They're playing their best football now when it matters the most. You know, they kind of remind me of that 2014 Carolina Panthers team that went 7-8-1, and at the end of the year, Cam Newton just kind of put the team on his back and is like, well, if the Saints and the Falcons and the Bucks, if they're not going to try and win the division, well, damn it, I guess we're going to do it. And just turned it on, and we did our thing.
But this time they have a competent coach.
Yeah. They have a competent coach. They have their quarterback. All their receivers are injured, but yeah, man, I think that all the names that are linked to the Panthers right now, at least one of those dudes has to be our own version of Peterson, one of these new guys that thinks about football in an innovative way, and we so desperately need that right now.
You know, Peter. Go ahead, CK.
Go ahead. Well, what I was going to say, obviously the Athletic has a really good article that kind of breaks down each one of them. And one of the things that they do note with Eric Bieniemy is that he has not only does he obviously have the ability to motivate these guys and earn the respect of the players, being that he was a player, but apparently he's really adopted the statistics part of things and trying to go into the new generation of how things are being done. But he also has a knack for designing protections that keep Pat Mahomes safe. And that part is what I'm most interested in right now. If you can have a good quarterback, if you can protect him, keep him off of the ground, keep him healthy, that quarterback is going to be able to pick apart defenses. And if Bieniemy has the ability to create a game plan that keeps Cam Newton, regardless of the protection that he has, meaning the quality of the linemen or anything like that, then that's what I'm most interested in, because that allows me to believe that there is a continued future for Cam Newton to continue to be an elite quarterback in the league.
You're listening to the C3 Panthers podcast, brought to you by CarolinaCatChronicles.com. We want you to be part of the show by calling in. The number's 252-228-5098. You can leave a voice message anytime, all day. We'll get you in on the show. Let's go and jump into the cat calls before we talk about this Mike McCarthy noise. No. Number's 252-228-5098. I'm into it. These guys aren't. It's great, crazy.
So what are your thoughts on cat calling?
Yeah, it's pretty. You shouldn't do that to somebody.
And how did that make you feel?
Very uncomfortable.
So how do you think catcalling makes the person feel?
It feels good, like.
I didn't mix it tonight, so it's just going to go straight.
Yo, what's up, guys? Nick from up here in Mass. So,
Nick, he's probably going to talk shit about
and Tony, I have to say, man, you started off the podcast right. You talked about building the defense around Brian Burns. Not going to lie, man, made my day right there, because that dude, he's a freaking monster.
He is.
And the fact that he's a rookie, he's putting out the numbers that he's putting out. He should get better with time, granted, should. So we'll see what happens. But when you start talking about a nice young player like that who's making plays, who's making things happen, even with the injury that he had to deal with and the limited number of snaps, that says something, man. I definitely agree with that. I definitely feel like we should start looking at building the defense around him and playing to his strengths, because that dude, he's a freaking monster.
He's picking up what I'm putting down, fellas.
If everyone on the defense played on his level, this season would have been an entirely different season. So that's the first point I wanted to make. The second point, okay, and I've been thinking about this for a few weeks, okay, Cam Newton comes back next year. We're all thinking the same thing. He really should come back. There are some arguments There's some arguments that point in the other direction. But
they're false.
We all agree that
he's coming back.
Now, shouldn't our backup play the same style of game that Cam plays? Shouldn't our backup quarterback be a very mobile quarterback? I mean, I get it. Cam is like a once-in-a-lifetime sort of quarterback. But why would we have a different backup, somebody who plays a completely different style of ball, whenever we have an offense that should be, quote-unquote, should be, built around our quarterback?
I.e. Baltimore.
So, I mean,
built a team around a player.
To make that happen, that means that you're either going to be drafting a quarterback, and you're going to be drafting relatively high in order to get the quarterback that you want, and that's not going to look good for us. It's not going to give us the answers that we've been looking for all this time. But that's just something to think about. The other thought on Cam is, you guys have said multiple times that whenever Cam has been calling audibles, that we've been by far more successful. Sorry about that. Timer. Cam has been, we have been by far more successful when Cam has been calling audibles. Now, shouldn't we play to that strength and maybe let Cam do the same thing as, I forget who it is, that is it plays the same style of football, you know? Or not same style of football, but likes to call audibles and likes to run the offense.
Well, stop it. It's going to go next call. All right, got it. All right. What, Nick, holy cow, best call ever. Did not spend the time either throwing shade at Tony. Look, he said this. Did you hear the beginning of his call? He said, I thought I was going to have to throw shade at you. But then you said build the defense around Brian Burns, which is the truth, man. I'm telling you, is that Cody, I'm just trusting Cody on this. And I'm trusting the other thing is that my man's on every fucking play I've ever seen him play on. Like I have a rule when it comes to defensive players. If they're in the screen every time I'm watching television, it's a good thing. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, if you ain't in the picture, if you somewhere off there or that, Brian Burns, Luke Kuechly, I used to always say this about Luke Kuechly, he's always in the fucking picture. He might not be the guy making the play, but he's always around the play. He's always in the play.
He's a camera whore. He always has to be in the picture.
Yes. And Brian Burns is that. I do firmly believe that would be a travesty for the Carolina Panthers to not build around somebody that they've invested a lot in and that has showed a ton of promise. We're not talking about Coney Ely flash in the pan. We're talking about all season long he has been a producer. But go ahead and comment on that when we're talking about this. I know, Cody, you liked what he was spitting when it comes to a quarterback of the similar style.
Yeah, I mean, one of the players that I liked last year who came out in the draft simply because he was similar to Cam Newton, like Nick was talking about, was Tyree Jackson, the quarterback from Buffalo. The dude's like 6'7", has an absolute cannon for an arm. There was a clip of Steve Smith at the combine going up to him and berating him and telling him not to throw the ball so hard at the receivers because it's going to hurt their hands. That would have been the perfect kind of quarterback. And he was mobile. And he would have been available later in the draft. I think he went undrafted even. So, I think this is kind of the hesitation around Marty Herney. He had Kyler Murray ranked below Will Grier. And that's just absolutely...
You don't think he really... you don't believe that. Nobody really believes that.
They put out a report that the Panthers did not value Kyle. Why? Why?
Because he was going to be number one, so there's no reason to even think about it.
But that's not even how they do it.
That would be like, is that? Do I think my wife is the hottest woman in the world? Hell yeah. But do I like Katie Holmes? Hell yeah.
I'm having a really hard time understanding the connection there, Tony.
You don't get it. You wouldn't draft a fucking. You wouldn't draft a, like, I'm trying to think of someone who would be like a top woman. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, there was this old King of Queens episode. It was funny. And they were laying in bed one night and they said this, and the woman was like, all right, if we could have one pass, you know what I'm saying? Like, if this has happened, that we would let it be okay. And she was like, it was like Richard Gere or Kevin, you know, it was like these two people. She was going back and forth and she couldn't decide. And the husband was like, all right, which one is it? Is it that one? Is that one? Come on. Which one is your thing? And she said, all right, it's this guy. And she goes, who is yours? And he said, the girl that does your nails. You know what I'm saying? And it was like,
simple-minded.
Oh, that shit is legitimately possible. So the fact is that what I'm saying is Kyler Murray was not a legitimate option for the Carolina Panthers. So to say he had or didn't have him ranked, that's just silly talk.
Even so, like, listen. So John Elway is another one of these assholes that if your quarterback is not over 6'1", dude, he wants no part of you. This dude looked over Russell Wilson, looked over,
Who looked over Russell Wilson?
John Elway. It was the
John Elway. I thought you were talking about Marty Herney.
No, I mean, listen. John
Elway's on record for saying he thought he was too short.
Yeah, and it's so, but that is kind of what I'm talking about, though. Marty has this kind of idea of what a quarterback is supposed to.
Lies. He picked Cam Newton. Shut.
Yeah, but I don't give you a ton of credit for drafting easily the best player in that draft. I mean, yeah, Marty Herney.
No, dude, it was not. You were so young. You were like a teenager when that shit happened, dude.
I was 21.
You were not 21 with Cam Newton.
I was 21 in 2011. You want me to do the math?
No, but I'm gonna tell you this: is that, dude? It was not a guarantee. You know what I'm saying? It was not. Today we continue to say that Cam Newton was a consensus best player, but we talked about it from Nick Fairley to Von Miller.
Wasn't, but dude, everyone knew. I mean, listen, I'm not giving the man credit, but
he dared to be great, dude. He dared to be great.
Right, but I don't know, man. I'm not. I mean, after drafting Will Grier and seeing how terrible he looked,
that's not even fair, dude.
I 100% believe that he had Will Grier ranked way higher than Murray.
So terrible.
I'm as positive as.
Do you believe that, CK?
I mean, it's hard to. So here's the thing: is
Or is your wife hotter than well, your wife is probably. I would say this is that all of the people on the Panthers C3 Panthers podcast.
No, I want you to finish that statement.
Yeah.
I was gonna say hotter than your wife is hotter than. I was trying to think. I can't ever think of names real fast. Charlize Theron,
but
I think she's hot.
Fair enough. So what my point that I was gonna make was to say that he wasn't like. Let's say that report was reality, and your point is that why would they have him? Why would they even put much effort into grading him? There's no chance that he's going to be a Panther, right? Well, the problem is there could have been.
Or why would you say it?
That happened between.
Why would you say it after the fact, even though? You know what I'm saying? Like if I married my wife and she was the second choice, I wouldn't be like, oh well. It turns out you really were second choice. You just felt like the other person got sniped before you.
was the statement that he was the highest rated quarterback on their list, or was it he was the highest rated quarterback that they realistically had the shot of getting? Because that's two different things.
No, not the highest rated on their list, but so even if a
He
team
just said he was first round material. That's all he said.
No. They had Will Greer. Not that he was their first pick, but that they had Will Greer
This
ranked
is such a
ahead of Kyler
lie.
Murray.
This is
Because
such lies.
even if
This
you're
is
not in
lies.
the range, even if you're not in the range to draft a person, like teams still do their due diligence on evaluations and scouting reports.
Do you believe this, chat room? Chat room, do you believe this bullshit? There's no way.
Hey man, I'll be interested to see what the chat room thinks. Do they think that Marty Herney had Will Greer ranked ahead of Kyler Murray in last year's draft? I 100% think so.
No way. All right, we're going to the next call. The number is 252-228-5098. We also got, I think, maybe some special guests coming later in. I cleared out the room since Greg's not here. Made sure Greg was not here for this, but I'm bringing on formerly known as the First and 10 podcast dudes, also known as Titletown Brawl now, and to maybe hopefully talk about Mike McCarthy around 10 o'clock. The number is 252-228-5098. Don't worry, I cleared they're safe. Greg's not here. But
I kind of want Greg just to pop in, to be honest.
I know.
Let me talk to Greg real quick.
He's gonna call. I know he called in tonight since he couldn't be here. He wanted to be here tonight. Number's 252-228-5098. We got a couple of older calls sprinkled in too. So guys, cover this call for me as I go.
What's up, fellas? This is
lighten the load,
man. Obviously, I love the show. Keep doing y'all thing. Appreciate y'all. So we're looking back at the last decade, man. I think for one, I think we had some pretty good success, right? Like, I think arguably, I think the most impressive thing we've done in that last decade was one, we had our first MVP represented by the Panthers. That's pretty cool. And two, the hardest thing, the hardest feat we accomplished was we won a division 3 times in a row, which was never done. Yeah, we made it to the Super Bowl.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's harder to win a division 3 times in a row than it is to make it to the Super Bowl in one season, but that's just me. Anyway, I'm going to make a quick analogy. I'm looking back at the last decade, and I think the Panthers are kind of like in the NFL. I think the Panthers are like teenagers, right? Like, we're looking out into the world that is the NFL and trying to figure out our play. We never had back-to-back winning seasons. We're still trying to figure out, like, what it means to be a true, like, NFL juggernaut year in and year out. And I think we just had a lot of growing up to do, and that was exposed this year by Dave Tepper. Look at all the things that he's doing that teams have already done. So if we look at the adults in the league, right, quote-unquote the adults in the league, that's going to be the Patriots, that's going to be Green Bay. They've had a lot of success recently, but even the Raiders and, like, the kind of stuff that they do with their stuff, Dave Tepper is literally installing infrastructure, kind of growing us up, like maturing us from being a teenager to an adult with, like, you know, physically the practice facility, which isn't even a practice facility, it's just a big-ass bubble in the middle of the field. Think about this.
Yeah.
This goes back to the teenager analogy and growing up. If it rained hard outside, we had to practice in the convention center. An NFL team, when it rained outside, we had to go into a convention center and practice on the carpet. That's not good. So Dave Tepper's installing infrastructure.
And it was acceptable to Jerry Richardson.
You know, with practicing and everything. Look at the HQ thing he's doing down in South Carolina, which is going to be the real practice facility and where, you know, camp is held and offices and all that stuff. Look at the progressive amount of people he's looking out to try to put into our office, like with, you know, putting analytics at the forefront and everything like that. I think last decade it was more about growing up, being a teenager, growing up. I think this decade, the next decade, 2020 to 2029, is going to be straight up adulthood. This is when we come into our own, and this is when we figure out, like, damn, like, we're juggernauts now. Sorry for the long message, man. I love y'all. Happy holidays. Peace and love to y'all, man. One.
Love it, man. Thank you so much for the call. Tony, start it over real quick. Let me hear his name again.
Coltrane,
my man. Yeah, man. No, he had a great point, Tony. I know you kind of missed most of it. He was like, if you look at NFL teams as people, the adults are the teams that the Packers, the Patriots, the Raiders, all these teams that have been through it. They have a long, storied history in the NFL. But if you look at it, the Carolina Panthers, relatively, we're like a teenager football team. I mean, when it rained, we were practicing in event arenas or event stadiums in the hotel, like the ballrooms or whatever. So,
drinking beer in the back room.
Yeah, and
we have had talent though. The good news about that is 2 Super Bowl appearances in a short span. I always like to tell the Falcons fans, like, suck my D when it comes to you talking shit about us and owning us. Your ass ain't won no Super Bowl. You've been in the league for like 50 years. 60 years. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Oh, by the way, before we go any further, RT 1981 makes a great point. Marty Herney also drafted Jimmy Clausen in the second round.
And everybody said he was that. Now, to be fair, that's like...
Yeah, but he's not everybody. It's his job to know better.
Clausen was bad. I can't... how you can't defend that? I mean, you can't defend that.
That was a sigh of defeat you just had there, Tony. Just,
I mean, I do. I mean, I want to say that. I mean, it comes back to this, is that... How about this? Is that if he had Will Grier, like, rated as number 1 on his board, Clausen was rated number 1 on everybody's board that year. Not everybody's, but you know what? He fell for a reason. And, the Panthers, I think they were in desperation mode. They needed to. Like, it was almost silly not to pick him. But he was fucking terrible. He was the worst. He might as well be picked by John Elway.
He was fucking terrible.
You know what was the problem with Jimmy Clausen is he had a little dick. That's my theory. He had a little dick. What? And the reason I don't know that, but what I'm saying is he didn't have a big one. And my point being is he was scared. He was scared to throw the ball downfield. So he always checked off. He always threw underneath. He had he needed to give him a blue pill.
I didn't know
Carolina blue pill.
I didn't know you were such a size queen, Tony Dunn. What the hell, man?
Well, I tell you one thing is that it might not matter, but at every stage, but it does matter at some point.
If you say so, champ. Dude, listen, man. I don't know. I'm just saying, Will Grier sucks. Did not play well. Couldn't beat out Kyle
I don't care about Will Grier, man. Who gives a fuck about Will Grier, though?
We better hope that either Cam Newton comes back or we have the number 1 pick of the 2021 draft. Because I do not feel confident about his ability to get a quarterback outside of Cam
So you're
Newton
trying to tell me that the only one is Burrow in this draft?
No, not in this one. I like, I would put Burrow 1, Tua 2 because of the injuries, and Justin Herbert number 3. And
so without the injuries, would you put Tua above Burrow?
That's tough, man. Probably maybe a little bit because I've had more than one season of Tua being a really good quarterback, and Joe Burrow only has the 1 season. But, dude, Joe Burrow's going to be fine.
Is Herbert the guy that plays for Oregon, or is it the dude that plays for Ohio State?
Yeah, Herbert is the Oregon Duck quarterback.
I like that Ohio State cat. Can he not come out this year?
Him and Trevor Lawrence are in the same draft.
Oh, that dude looks like a fucking NFL player, bro.
You know who else does? Trevor fucking Lawrence, bro.
Shut up, man. That shit, he is not gonna be able. I tell you this is, I sent you a message and you were mad about it, and I didn't want to argue about it.
Because you're wrong and I'm right.
That running shit ain't gonna work for no Trevor Lawrence in the NFL. Them motherfuckers are gonna fucking chase him down.
They've been saying that about him for 2 or 3 years now, and
no way that shit is gonna fly. It's different in the from college to pros. You're listening to the C3 Panthers podcast. Numbers 252-228-5098. We got a couple more calls, and we got to talk about Mike McCarthyism.
So that's what I was saying before I was so rudely cut off by your time limit. No, just kidding. But I mean, shouldn't
we've been thinking about shortening
this big name offensive coordinator, something like that? Shouldn't we do something in the aspect of let Cam take the reins more often than he has? Let's see what the guy can do. I mean, he's been playing football for how many years?
I gotta pause it here. And this is a thank you, Nick, for bringing this up. Something that Cody has been screaming on, banging the table on this podcast for a year or two since you've come on, is speeding up the offense, giving Cam Newton more control of it.
Right.
And that things get better when that happens. You know what I loved? I was listening to an Eric Bieniemy press conference today, and it was an older one. I think it was from last year. Did Sammy Watkins join them last year?
2000 and
so it wasn't this year. So this is his second. This is his second year with them, correct? So I was thinking. I think I was listening to a press conference from last year,
second or third.
And one of the things that he said is he said players are going to make mistakes, and we're all right with that. Well, we want to know why they made mistakes. But he said this: we want your asses out there playing fast and confident. Not thinking, playing fast. It's like, and if you make a mistake, no. Do we want it to be, he said this, do we want perfection? Sure. But we understand people are going to make mistakes. I want my guys playing fast, feeling the game. That shit is what Cam Newton needs.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I'm sure there's got to be some stats out there. But if you look at the stats or even just film on Cam Newton running that hurry-up offense, I don't know if there's many quarterbacks better. I mean, because you almost feel like every time we're in that hurry-up, he is getting the ball out and making the correct reads. He's able to command the huddle. Or the lack of a huddle, I guess you could say, and the hurry up. But I mean, he's just been able to do that. And so if Bieniemy is saying that he has the will to run an offense based on what their players are capable of doing, well, we know Cam Newton's capable of running that. So that actually would be exciting. The only thing is I'm not sure our defense is capable of holding up under the pressure that's going to be a constant.
Well, I think there's a difference too between playing like what a Chip Kelly style is intended to get more plays, but other than what I kind of read from this press conference was Bieniemy was saying, I want guys reacting, not thinking.
Yeah,
and I think that's yeah, exactly.
You know, that's. I mean, they've got a decade of experience reacting. You know, because that's what they've been able to do. That's how they got to this point. They've reacted to the game, and then obviously you get to the college level and you start to actually understand the game a little bit, and then the NFL hits, and now all of that reaction and that natural gift is culminated into intelligence that you're going to be learning from your head coaches. So.
What a comment. Yeah, what a comment there. And I agree 100% with what you're saying, CK, because you see these guys, particularly, we think of the greats, we think of Tom Brady's, we think of the Drew Brees, and we think of the Aaron Rodgers. But one of the things they do a lot of times, and Phillip Rivers is probably the worst out of it because he just chunks it up whenever the fuck he wants to. But they know the situation and they just go with it. You know, it's like, oh, got you. I'm throwing it there, and my guy either makes the catch or he doesn't. You know, and it's not overthinking. It's just playing as fast as they can. And that is what Bieniemy emphasized and having a former player who is a coach can understand. Let's go back to Nick and Mass. Thank you for the call on the Cat Calls line. Number's 252-228-5098.
Maybe we should just let him take the reins and see how we do for a couple of games. Who knows? Maybe we could do a heck of a lot better than we would have before. On top of that, dear God, I never want to hear missed opportunities ever freaking again.
Yes.
You guys said that. It's like, Jesus, don't, just never again.
I think please. I said it in the last podcast by accident.
And to finish up my call, I want to ice myself up. I slacked off a lot last year. And Josh, I know you're hearing this and you're probably like, what the hell is he talking about? But I slacked off a lot this past year, and I need to stop doing that. So, Tony, I know you're going to love that one.
Yeah, Nick, stop slacking off.
You over the last year, but
fucking
love the show, guys. Listen every week.
Slacker.
Hope you guys all had a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, a great New Year. Hope you guys all stayed safe and everybody had a good time. But keep pounding, guys.
Yeah, I hope it snows like 2,700 inches for you. No, I'm just kidding, Nick. You're my man. You're my boy, Nick. Guys, he has brought up a lot of good points. We are shortly going to be joined by Titletown Brawl, a.k.a. Jay and Dave, maybe just one or two, who also got beef, who Greg made them mad because he kept...
So listen, man.
Watch it right now. Stop. We can't. I kind
of sold you on Eric Bieniemy a little more than you previously were sold. So listen, man. Me and Cody Squared over here, me and my man CK, we're not big fans of this McCarthy pick.
I'm all in. I'm all in. Right.
Hey, man, I'm all ears, bro. Sell us on why you're now all of a sudden so infatuated with the big guy from Pittsburgh.
All right. And that's where Pittsburgh. Green Bay. He's from Green Bay.
But he is born in Pittsburgh.
Really? So you're like that's like being like from that's funny. You've been dropped that's like where Ron Rivera was truly born.
Well, a lot of people are saying, "Hey, David Tepper's from." All
right. So here's my number one thing. Is that today I watched before in preparation for the show. I was trying to look at some stuff from Mike McCarthy, look at some stuff from Bieniemy, and I was trying to get some real just to them some FaceTime of these cats actually speaking. See how I can feel about them. Now, Mike McCarthy did a 45-minute interview with Peter King on NBC Sports. I thought it was really good. And I'm going to tell you this, as I've been saying over and over and over and over again, is that I think getting a guy in here who has had some head coaching experience is beneficial. It's valuable. And I understand the want for the next new thing, the next beauty. But, there's something to be said about Madonna. And Madonna, she's been a superstar multiple times throughout her life. She got her finger on the pulse. She was reborn her image in some ways. And this is what I sort of thought with Mike McCarthy was a potential. Is a guy who had some very good success in the NFL. He won a Super Bowl. And then is fired and had a year off to reflect. And that's where I continue to come back is I heard this interview, guys, and I heard Mike McCarthy talking about being growing. And for someone who has a career, I just actually entered and not that you guys don't. I didn't mean it that way. What I mean is I just hit my 10th year in my career, right? Is at my job, I've been there for 10 years, and I do see it more than a job. It's been a career. It's been a very important thing in my life. And while I was very talented in my early years, I did lack a perspective. And I wonder if this is that the humility of being fired and the experience that Mike McCarthy brings, if that equates to a new birth, like a reinvigoration with experience, that's what I like about the Mike McCarthy thing.
I have 2 points.
All right.
So I have 2 metaphors, I guess. So first metaphor being let's deem the Panthers of being a female in an abusive relationship. Okay.
Oh.
She finally comes up with the actual courage to leave that relationship. Then
this is the best metaphor ever, by the way.
Then what she does is she finds somebody who says, man, I used to be the same guy, but I've learned from my mistakes. And all of a sudden, she is now dating the new guy who says he has learned. Like, he's different. He's a different guy, but he's done the exact same things. And then literally 6 months later, when they're actually you're not sitting there and having hours to sit there and contemplate your moves. You're just realizing you're back in that abusive relationship. Second metaphor is Mike McCarthy saying that he has learned and changed is like lying on your resume to get a job. So let's talk about The Office. Daryl, he puts on his resume, he helped package billions of pieces of equipment or what is it of 1 billion units, helped ship and package 1 billion units. And they ask, 1 billion what? He said, pieces of paper. So saying like I've learned is like fudging the resume to make it look like you're that much better. But right now he can sit there and say all of these things. But what we have is a long history of him saying almost identical things while he was in the Packers.
Why
uniform.
do you? All right. So first of all, it's super funny, and that was amazing metaphoric relationships. Except for, I just wanted to punch you in your face and say, "Get back in the kitchen." But I'm just kidding.
That's how it normally does.
Just kidding. My question is to you is why do you feel that Mike McCarthy is that? Why do you feel that he is the abuser who has learned from his lessons? What I see him as is this, as a Super Bowl coach who won a Super Bowl and who had a lot of success, but also maybe could have found himself in a rut. And if people, if you are in a job and your career and you get in the grind, look, today was my first day back at work. Had an extended break. The Christmas break is generally the longest break for me in my career. I don't get vacations. I get these built-in vacations built on the semester, right? So, as I don't get to take time off, it's like I get spring break off. I get this. And I get a lot of time off, though, so it's not like I'm just as crazy. But Christmas break is the longest of all of my breaks. But it's always busy with Christmas and shit like that. Today, we went back to work. It was the earliest we've ever gone back to work. Ever. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, whatever, the second. We never go back this early. So, we're dragging ass. Everybody doesn't want to be there. We're all bitching. But we all love our fucking careers. We all love our jobs. But sometimes you get in that little bit of rut. You get complacent. Don't you think there's a potential that a guy who had a lot of success, who kind of was humbled, kind of felt that bottom for a moment, that they can be rejuvenated and be put in a new situation?
Maybe for a year. I mean, and Cody, you go ahead because I've hogged this side of the mic.
Well, I mean, what I would say is, okay, other than the fact that he won a Super Bowl. Yeah.
Oh, other than that, oh god.
Hey, we were 2 plays away from winning ourselves.
I demonstrated to you why I think Eric Bieniemy would actually elevate our offense, because him being a running back guy, he's going to continue to use Christian in incredible ways, and all the running backs under him previously have been successful. And that offense that they have in Kansas City is made to move the football. They're good at throwing the football, and it comes very highly touted. My question to you is, like, what is it specifically about Mike McCarthy that you think he would be able to bring to this Carolina Panthers team as the head coach that we either didn't have under Ron Rivera, or that, we're just missing as a football team as a whole? What does he do for us?
All right, number one, when it comes to the Ron Rivera aspect, I think that we were Ron Rivera's first stop. And one of the things I've continued to say about Ron Rivera is that I felt like he did become complacent after the Super Bowl loss. I think he continued to point how other people weren't doing what they were supposed to do. And I think that Mike McCarthy has learned. Here's Mike McCarthy a little bit. I got a couple of clips. Let's listen to what Mike McCarthy said. I watched this whole 45-minute interview today. And by the way, I'm starstruck at this point because it was just today. You give me 45 minutes with Eric Bieniemy, and I'm sure I'm the same way. But here, this is Mike McCarthy and what he's learned.
Give me an example of how you feel that you're going to take something you've learned this year into your new world.
Well, I think it's like anything. You when you have time to reflect, the brutal honest with yourself is where you're going to get the most value. And I've looked at every coaching staff, every decision, installation of offense, scheduling. We practiced on Fridays, then we didn't practice on Fridays. So when you have a chance to look at all those things, it gives you, a more distinct, focus on exactly how you'll approach that next one. So, I mean, one thing, just to give you a direct answer to your question, if you're going to call the offense, if you're going to be the play caller on Sunday, you need to be the major installer, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So that's something that I got away from in the second half of my career there in Green Bay. And so
how did you do it in the second half?
Well, we spread it out, and the why we did things, they're all sound judgments and good decisions, and you're trying to evolve your staff. You're trying to, you're trying to let coaches grow. This coach was in charge of third down, and then you wanted to grow his experience, and he got switched to red zone. So you're trying to do different things with staff development. That frankly, the priority of staff development probably took a little bit away from, the game planning process of how we did it in the early years. So, it's not a really right and wrong. It's more of a preference.
Yeah. Why do you think it's important for the guy who is installing to be the guy who's calling the plays?
And I think it's the same thing on defense too, because every player in that room needs to know why you're calling that play, and he needs to hear it from you why he's calling the play. You rely on a long-term relationship with your quarterback or your offensive coordinator or your offensive line coach. That's not as good as if you're in there installing it and doing it each and every day.
This is why the first point of why I like at least, and look, I understand I might be just a little starstruck at this moment. But what I like about what McCarthy has done in this interview is he's been reflective, self-reflective. And what I think about when I watch this interview, 45 minutes, he's become more interested in the processes of being a head coach rather than being bogged down in play call minutia. And I think that's what a head coach really needs to be understanding of, is how to become a teacher.
I mean, a coach is a teacher first and foremost. I mean, you have to be able
He has to teach his staff, too.
Yeah, and he has to be able to do all those things. And, I mean, listen, I don't want to take anything away from him. He clearly has done it before. He's been around Aaron Rodgers and Brett Favre. I think even Steve Young, I believe, he's been around some damn good quarterbacks. I'm not trying to take that away from him. But I look at it as we're trying to get a Mike McCarthy who is now learning how to do brand new things, whereas Eric Bieniemy is a guy known for what he's doing right now. But man, listen, you can't pick a better time for our guest to show up right as we're talking about Mike McCarthy. We have a brand new guest, Tony, who we have joining us.
Is this Dave or Jay? It's Dave.
This is Jay. What's up?
Oh,
man?
Jay, what's up, Jay? How are you doing, Jay?
Good.
All right.
Dave is dealing with bronchitis issues, and he barely made it through our show. So.
Oh yeah.
Hey, thanks so much for being here, man.
Yeah,
we kind of want you to jump in on this conversation that we're having. The Panthers is looking for a brand new head coach. I'm not that big of a fan of the idea of the Panthers hiring Mike McCarthy, and my man Tony here is. He's I'm
on the Mike McCarthy bandwagon right now. We've got Jay here from Titletown Brawl. You're formerly known as the First and 10 podcast, but Titletown Brawl, thank you, Jay, for joining us. Thoughts on Mike McCarthy?
Well, I will say this. Mike McCarthy's first, let's say, 9 years were really good in Green Bay, right? Prolific offense, Super Bowl, multiple NFC championships, quarterback wins a couple MVPs, great player development. I mean, you can go through the list of receivers, all late round picks, none of them first round picks, multiple offensive linemen, I mean, great young player development, year in, year out, one of the youngest teams in the league, and made seven straight playoff appearances and runs. The back end last 4 or 5 years, not so great, right? And on his way out the door, guys, and going into this coaching search last year, even on our shows, previously First and Goal, and now, of course, yes, we did get hired by the Brawl Network, so we're now Titletown Brawl. We just cover the Packers now. But now looking back on it, and particularly after seeing the NFL Network piece, I don't know if you guys saw it, that they did the piece on Mike McCarthy about, 4 or 5 weeks ago. They had it on their morning show before the football games. And look, he still lives in Green Bay. His wife and kids were born, they're raised, they're from there, and he's still been there, okay? He's still there after all this time. So, that shows a little bit of testicle fortitude that the dude that got fired is still living in the town. You know what I mean? Like, so he's not.
Yeah, and he calls it home. He calls it home.
So, I mean, there's loyalty there. That means a lot to me. Like, he's not soft-skinned. He didn't try to run away and hide. Like, he stayed right in the town where people formerly really – Packer fans kind of started to hate him when he got fired, and he's still out there. So I got to give him credit for that. Like, that's some leadership there, right? Like, that shows me some real deep down, like, resiliency there, right? That's a positive. 2, he's not a stupid man, guys. Like I was saying before that piece, and before I started looking into it and thinking about it a little bit, I thought I would say he's a guy you definitely want to hire to have a young team to develop. But after about the 4th or 5th year, you want to start looking for that guy that can sustain that, right? Like, he's the team builder, but not the guy that can sustain the success. I think he's learned his lesson, and I think he's already worked with some other former coaches that have learned some lessons the hard way too, and they've all kind of collaborated, if you watch that piece, to get ready for their next team. I believe this next version of Mike McCarthy, although he was very successful, he has almost a 700 win percentage in this league, okay, as a head coach. That's not easy to do. I think what I'm saying here is, like, some coaches that get run out of the league and aren't successful, their second run, like the Bill Belichick's and the Carrolls, are better. I'm thinking, guys, this guy, I think he's going to be better the second time around.
I told you, fuckers. Right. I told you, assholes. That's what it was. Guys, thank you.
Cody, here's the thing. The one knock on him was not player development, not his ability to relate, not that his team, his players didn't like him, didn't play hard for him. His thing became, and even the players that were on his side and wanted him out, their number one thing was his stubbornness and his inability and unwillingness to change his offense, to the point where people knew Even guys that run it, they run 53 plays, and they have for the last 10 years, and everybody knows it, and he won't change. And his thing was, well, you got to execute. If the players that execute better, everything's better.
Right.
Aaron Rodgers, now, if you listen to him now, he knows that's not going to work. He can't walk in like he's not.
Do you think he's just talking the schmooze? Cody thinks that he's just talking interview talk.
But no, this is my question. Like, okay, so I know a lot of Packers fans weren't very happy with Dom Capers, and it took Mike McCarthy forever to fire Dom Capers to try and make that defense better. My question for you is this: why are you so confident? I mean, is it just an interview? What is it about Mike McCarthy now that makes you think that he isn't the man that got fired from the Green Bay Packers? Why are you so sure that he is no longer that stubborn old mule set in his ways, only running the same 53 plays all the time?
Because he had some of his closest players turn on him and tell him straight out that he wasn't no good no more. When you have people that you trust and are close in relationships, when you saw him in that interview talk about the relationship that him and Aaron Rodgers had and the meetings they had, there was a close personal relationship. Aaron was the biggest name and one of the biggest guys that wanted him out of town because that relationship was frayed based off of his stubbornness. When you go through things like that, Cody, let's take the professional football out of it. As a human being, when you have things like that happen, when the people around you basically come down on you so hard that you can't make excuses anymore, you have no choice but to self-reflect, and then you are given the requisite time to do so, only stupid people come back and try to do the same thing over. And I do not believe and never in my mind have I ever believed Mike McCarthy was stupid. Complacency is not stupidity. Complacency is just kind of laziness. It's, people that are lazy aren't stupid. Usually people that are lazy are highly intelligent. That's how they can get away with being lazy and still have a job for so many years. That's why I think he's going to be better this second time around. He learned his lesson.
How do I know that you're not trying to send McCarthy over here?
Another NFC.
Yeah,
because he built Aaron Rodgers, and he built a lot of those players that if he gets this job and makes the success, they're going to play them in the playoffs. Why the hell would I want the guy that knows he raised Aaron Rodgers as a football player. He knows his footwork. He knows his arm angles. He knows his check with me's. He knows his favorite plays and routes to Devontae Adams. There is no reason why a Packer fan, from a strategic standpoint, wants Mike McCarthy in the NFC coaching, period. Like, seriously.
I love it. I love
like the energy.
Look at this energy.
The issue I have is when you say stubborn, there is a lot of positive, right? There's a lot of upside, but stubborn isn't a temporary thing. Stubborn is a character piece, right? And I was providing metaphors as to what I thought McCarthy was, and what I feel like, and once again, this is coming from somebody who's really paid attention to the last 5 years of his time in Green Bay rather than so much effort into knowing him for the first 9
seasons. Yeah, back to 06. That deep? So, but is it that long?
Yeah. But here's my metaphor, and I'll even switch it up. I'll put it in my life. Him talking and doing the things that he is and doing the interviews and everything is like there's a girl that I work with who is a supervisor who was recently promoted in that last year or so. Well, the moment she was promoted, she put on her status and LinkedIn and Facebook and everything saying that she was the training supervisor. Well, the funny thing is she was just a supervisor who was new, and the only people they trusted her with were trainees. So what it looked like is she was trying to say they trust me so much to train these trainees, rather than the reality of it is that she was really just not good enough to train or to deal with anybody other than trainees. So what I mean by that is we can make it look like we've changed. We can make it look like it's a diamond when in all reality it's a shiny turd, right? We don't know for a fact yet that McCarthy has made that change, because yes, 1 year in Carolina may be a great change for him, might be something that he actually adjusts his character and his coaching style and everything. But what happens when we start getting back into that complacency? Now, if it happened after 9 years, I imagine it's going to be a lot quicker that it happens the next go round, because this is just, rinse and repeat, in my opinion. And that's what I worry about, is that if we get him, it might be good. It might be an exact replica of what happened with Ron Rivera, where it was a great 5 years, but the last 4 have been less than extraordinary.
Well, and I will say this. You're absolutely right. Stubbornness, Mike McCarthy's never not going to be stubborn.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like telling me that, well, I don't like Aaron Rodgers because he's so arrogant.
Yeah.
Okay, well, every Hall of Fame quarterback has been absolutely over-the-top arrogant. That's what makes them better than the rest.
Yeah.
Is that
Aaron Rodgers is not a Hall of Famer.
Whoa, God.
No, I just wanted to fuck with him. I just wanted to fuck with him. Sorry, I was just fucking with him.
You should have hung up and just left right then and there.
Yeah,
I love Aaron Rodgers more than not more than anybody. I love Cam more than anybody. But sorry, I was just teasing.
To shut up on that one for you.
I was just teasing. I was just teasing.
That one, to me, there are certain responses that are so stupefied that I don't even respond to that.
For a while, yeah.
If I was
y'all fell hook, line, and sinker. Every one of y'all bitches.
If I was gonna use one movie reference, it would be the couples retreat and Vince Vaughn. That statement was just ass-tastic. That's all it was.
So okay, right. This is my question to you. Let's talk about that piece that came out. Basically, it was such a big deal at the time that essentially people with the organization had to answer for it. This piece came out about the friction, but I believe it was in Sports Illustrated, I think. It was about the friction between McCarthy and Aaron Rodgers and how they just absolutely loathed each other. And then there were times when you would see Aaron Rodgers being like, stupid fucking play call. And he was just so pissed off. And I get that you're already saying, he's trying to change and do new things because he had a real look in the mirror moment. But I also remember stuff in that story about him missing out on meetings for personal massages and stuff like that. Is there any truth to any of those claims that were laid out about McCarthy, or was that fabricated for a story?
No beat reporter that I highly respect and that I know can actually walk into a locker room and actually talk to a player, that none of actual reporting has that ever. I have not gotten one solid, actual, legitimate source that can be credited that says, I heard this from this player. I can't give him your name, but you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
If you look at those reports, it were these, and I don't want to disparage anybody, but they're just kind of some like Barstool Sports and other things that, yes, they put out pieces and they do research, but they're not directly.
Yeah, it's like fan-sided or something.
Right. They can't directly get into the building to get an actual quote. So, like, there was no actual Green Bay report, and people tried. Like, that story came about, and people do their due diligence. I have a lot of respect, a lot of connections with people that work for ESPN 540 Milwaukee and 94.5 Milwaukee down there. I'm friends with a lot of those guys that run the radio down there and produce. And I check, and none of those guys, they can't. So, could it be true? Yeah, but at the same time, it feels like to me like that was somebody trying to take something. Now, what I can tell you is that
it's not like he's Robert Kraft or something.
Right. Well, I can tell you that like guys like David Bakhtiari and Randall Cobb and Aaron Rodgers and Brian Bulaga and several other defensive and other players that were cornerstones did meet with Mark Murphy and did say that he was complacent, and that I know that David Bakhtiari, I can tell you directly, when listening to a show he was on, a radio show was on, his direct quote was the last straw for him was sitting on a plane 20 minutes late leaving, to get to where they had to go. And here comes a newly signed practice squad player McCarthy's holding the plane up for. Any other team shuts the door and leaves that jackass there because he just got signed from the practice squad.
Right.
So like that. So I can't confirm things like that. But on the same note,
that's him being a player's coach.
Right. So that's a player's coach, not even letting the little guy because that would basically end that kid's opportunity. So there's negatives and positives to each side of the story. And really, I think what it came down to is Dave and I have discussed this a lot. I think a lot of this was who he always was, but it became more negative after the NFC Championship game meltdown in 2014.
Right. Okay.
Yep. Yeah.
And that's when it started to fall apart because.
Tell us a little bit about that game. Tell us a little bit about that game to bring us back where we're at.
If you remember, Aaron Rodgers had strained his calf. I think it was like week 10 or 11. It was late in the season down in New Orleans on a scramble, and he never missed a game. But that right calf of his was just terrible. I can't remember. Maybe it was the left calf. It was
probably Byron Bell.
He was very immobile, and they made it to the NFC Championship game.
Sounds like Byron Bell.
Had Eddie Lacy, okay, and he was coming off his NFC or his rookie of the year. He had a really good year. I think he had over 1,100 yards that year, and they just refused to run the ball down the stretch. It became trying to throw the ball and force it to guys that couldn't get off of jams from one-armed guys. Like Jordy Nelson couldn't get off a press off of Richard Sherman. He was playing with one arm. He had that torn bicep or tricep. He couldn't use his left arm, and he was pressing up Jordy Nelson the entire game with one arm. And Jordy Nelson's 6'3", 230. I mean, he's not a little dude. Like, they just felt like that whole thing. The guy doing the wrong thing, Bostic at the end, the final nail in the coffin when he botches the onside kick. That's coaching. Like how you don't get your players together, in that kind of moment and kind of keep them calm so they know exactly. So that's really where the team lost. They felt like there was just between play calling, adjustments, and just kind of keeping the team in calm and under control during the critical moments that they failed in. The team just kind of felt like he failed them in that point. And I think just everything just kind of, they started nitpicking at each other, and it just slowly, that was the crack in the foundation. We all know if you crack the foundation, it's only a matter of time before it starts to crumble. All
right.
I mean,
let's check here. I got another clip from Mike McCarthy, and we'll hear what you guys got to say about it.
Is there something that you feel like you have sort of attacked in this year off and this rejuvenation year? Is there part of being a football coach that you feel you're going to be better at in 2020?
Definitely, because you've had a chance to step back, make sure your versatility and the multiplicity. Those tanks are full, and I think like anything with success, you can go down a certain path and you can stay down there a little too long, and that goes back to what I said earlier. You have to evolve, and it's just not on offense or defense or special team schemes. How you train the team is probably more important. The health of your football team, the wellness of your football team, the continuing education of your coaching staff. How do you move, the education and the experience that everybody in that football operations, how do you move that forward? That's to me.
That's what I like hearing.
Creates winning. So I think when you don't have success, there has to be something you pin it on. Get it? That's our industry. But there's so much more that goes in. There's so many more variables that go into winning than what plays you run on offense.
Jay, what I like about this is I'm a teacher by trade. I'm a teacher at the collegiate level. But at the same time, what you're trying to do is you're trying to continue to... What I felt like this is my first couple of years as being a teacher, I was very interested in what I needed to teach. But since then, I've become interested in how to teach it. And
you've changed. You've evolved.
Yeah, and it's about the process of education And I wonder, and this is why I've been interested in Mike McCarthy. I'm interested in him, and I know the other guys on the show aren't, but similar to a Bill Belichick, a guy who is seeing some bad, has had some failures, hasn't been a story of all success, but at the same time has evolved, like you said, evolved. I like the word grow in many ways, is because you grow into a position. If you've worked at multiple jobs, you've changed careers a couple of times, you do get a certain reinvigoration too. There's a youthfulness of coming to another job, a new position, and this is the thing that I am interested about Mike McCarthy, is there is a certain self-reflection there that I see, and that I like that, and that experience. And he is not shy to say, hey, I built a championship. I've been around a championship program.
Well, and here's the other thing too is, if you're gonna, every year we get at least one or two retreads. Like, let's be real here. I know people are gonna say blasphemy, but what did Bruce Arians ever win as a head coach, or where was his ultimate success that he's such a great, and why is everybody singing his praises? I mean, what the hell did he do? He was supposed to come in and fix Jameis Winston and be the save-all. They didn't have a great season. Like, their season wasn't any better last year, but everybody's so great on Bruce Arians. Doug Marrone is one of the dumbest head coaches I've ever seen, and he's still got a job down in Jacksonville, and he can't even coach the last 50 seconds of a lead in an AFC championship game correctly so that his team has an actual chance of winning. And he still got a job, and he was already fired after 2 failures, terrible failures in other franchises before that, and he still got a job. And and I can go on and on and on with this. Bill O'Brien had multiple years, all kinds of talent, and yet his best feat, his biggest accomplishment, is beating the all-time worst franchise in the Cincinnati Bengals at 3 times in a row, and then turn around and getting his face smashed in the divisional round. But everybody thinks he's a great head coach for some reason because he has Deshaun Watson. Mike McCarthy, for all of the negatives that people can sit there and point the fingers at, of all the people that you could retread, is the most dynamic, successful person out there. He's won more. He has had more success for longer periods of time than any of these other retread coaches that you might go look. And
see what I'm saying, Cody?
Would I rather take a chance? And then secondly, for everybody that wants some young Lincoln Riley, would I rather take a chance of a guy hey, I love him too. But again, here we're talking about realism and what's best right now and winning right now. And do I think I have a better chance of taking the most successful retreaded head coach that we've probably seen in our lifetime since Bill Parcells, and hope that that stubbornness didn't go away, but that stubbornness has grown and evolved into something that, like, I think can be better than the tenure he had his first 9 years and winning a championship, or hope and pray that a guy like Lincoln Riley that's never sniffed any position on an NFL field before doesn't come in and get over his skis and is one and done and run out of the league like many young college head coaches that we all thought were going to be the next big thing. It's risk versus reward. I think I'll put my bets on Mike McCarthy, because at least I think there's less risk there, because even if he comes in and he's stubborn, like I said, you're going to get at least 5 years. He's proven he can. Do we know that Lincoln Riley can develop NFL roster? I know Mike McCarthy can. Do we know that Lincoln Riley can come in and develop an NFL quarterback to be successful, win championships and MVPs? I know Mike McCarthy can.
All right, well, Jay, that actually kind of brings me into my next question for you, and I actually have 2 questions for you. One, it requires just a short answer. Were you in favor of the Packers firing Mike when they did? Were you a fan of that move?
I thought he needed to go 2 years prior, because I could see the time. It was to me, I related to it as Andy Reid, very good head coach, but his time had come up. The message was stale. The locker room was no longer paying attention to him. It did not mean that he was not a good head coach.
Okay.
But I thought he was there 2 years too long.
Now, let me ask you this. And do not feel obligated to say the Carolina Panthers is because you're talking to us. Out of all the jobs that are available right now, you mentioned Mike McCarthy being able to take a roster and build it up and make it better and develop talent. Is Carolina the best place for Mike McCarthy right now, or is it possible that the Cleveland Browns are a better situation for him?
Cody,
with a Baker Mayfield, with a talented roster.
I could kiss you right now, Cody, because we had this exact discussion on our show last week. I made this argument. There's two sides to this argument, and if I'm Mike McCarthy, I'm going to go with one over the other. When I look at rosters the way they're set right now, it's no doubt the Cleveland Browns. If I'm a head coach that ultimately I know winning and having talent, it makes it easier to win, and ultimately winning is the most surefire way to make sure that I keep a job for as long as I can, I'm going to the Cleveland Browns. Problem is you can't trust Jimmy Haslam that whether he's going to wake up on the left side of the bed every day and decide that he wants to keep going the way you're going, whether you're winning or not. Because guess what? Our defensive coordinator, thank God, our defensive coordinator is only defensive coordinator and is never going to leave. We don't fire him because he doesn't want to be a head coach again, because he was the most successful head coach the Cleveland Browns have had in the 2010s. He was 9-7. They gave him they forced a stupid, undersized, dumb QB that everybody knew was going to be a bust in Manziel on him and fired him 5 games into the season the next year, and they haven't won 9 games since. Right. So I don't trust the Cleveland Browns.
Are they really as talented as you give them credit for?
Yes, they are. Paper-wise, it take a coach to take if I'm telling you right now, if Mike McCarthy walks into that, they are probably in the divisional round, if not the AFC Championship game next year with their roster. That's how good their roster is. Their coaching was absolutely asinine. How the hell you don't score 40 points a game with the offensive talent they had? I mean, come on. That's what coaching was.
Yeah, that's what I've said the entire time. So, all right, but what about when it relates to?
Here's the second part of this.
Okay, yeah.
Mike McCarthy has kids. Like I said earlier, he got fired over a year ago and still lives in Green Bay while he searches for a new job where he will then move his family. Okay, so he's a family man, right? So he doesn't want to move somewhere. He's even said himself, his next job, with what he has changed, he plans on being there a long-ass time.
I think he also said that he was going to...
Looking for a fun way to win up to 25 times your money this basketball season? Test your skills on Prize Picks, the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Just select 2 or more players, pick more or less on their projected stats, and place your entry. You could turn $10 into $250. Right now, Prize Picks will match your first deposit up to $100. Just visit prizepicks.com/fan and use code FAN. That's code FAN at prizepicks.com/fan.
Must be present in certain states. Visit prizepicks.com for restrictions and details.